I'm not lying to nobody, number one. Okay, I don't ever promise anything, number two. And the third most important thing is I stand behind everything I do. I can make money and be successful if everybody else is successful that I'm helping. If they're
Yeah.
successful, I'm going to win, right? It's real easy. It's not a complicated formula. People out there, listen to me. If you overcomplicate it, if you can help other people be successful, you will win too. I'm just telling you, it's that simple.
Welcome back to the Takeover, where we show you how to dominate every area of life and business. Super excited to have Ivy Johnson today with Results Solution Works. This man is personally responsible for over 2 billion in sales across his career. Now, I think what's most impressive about this, and we're going to dive into it later, is that you actually have the data to track and prove that. It's not just a number you threw out, but I can tell you're obsessed with data. You're incredibly good at what you do. You have a really, really unique solution. And I think listeners, why you want to listen to today's episode is because Ivy has built a multi-8-figure company, and a lot of his business comes in through partnerships, partners that actually send him the business. So excited to dive in. I'm sure we're going to go a lot of ways. I've seen the way that you interact with your team in your company. Your culture is great. It seems like you really value people. You've got that like hustle mentality, whatever it takes to win, which is our audience. People come here
Right.
because they're resolved to win. So welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you very much, Tim. And I want to thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here, man. Let's rock out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm excited to have you here. I mean, maybe we just kind of start with a quick brief, a little bit how you got into your current business, because I know it started back. I mean, you were a sales hustler when you were just young, selling cars. So give our audience a little bit of your background, and then we'll kind of dive into what you're doing right now.
I was my story is a pretty I've had a lot of U-turns, a lot of 180s. I've had a lot of left and rights, right? So sort of like everybody else probably out there. We've got everybody's got their unique story. My story started back in a situation where I got myself in trouble in high school based on my grades. And I was 17, 18 years old. This is probably a story people are going to resonate with. It's pretty impactful. But I got myself in trouble. I was an athlete. Was very competitive. Clearly, I like to win, and so I have a lot of fun doing that, of course. But so I was very competitive, and I got myself in trouble with my grades. Well, when I found out that I was going to lose my opportunities to pursue football in college, because that was my goal, when that happened, I was devastated. And of course, not having a real sense of the real world and what happens in the real world and what it really takes to make it in the real world. I was an 18-year-old kid, 17, 18-year-old kid that thought I knew everything. I think everybody can relate to that, right? Back when you go back and think about it. And so what happened was, I decided I was going to leave school and go be, successful in life and in business. And so I walked out of high school. So I was a dropout, going back and got a GED a little bit later. So I
Wow.
remember going in. Yeah, I remember going into my first. I was dating this girl, really sweet family, really nice people. They're really good to me. We're still friends to this day. I remember going into her mom's the living room and her mom looking at me going, "It's time to get a job." Right. I pulled out the newspaper on Sunday. This dealership not far from us was running an ad for six-figure earnings potential, no experience necessary and all that. And so I remember going in there and I was really excited about that interview. I called them up and went in there and they gave me an opportunity. And so I remember going in my first day and rocking and rolling. And my first month, I was the salesman of the month, the dealership. They had a lot of people that were kind of set in their ways. I didn't know a whole lot. I was excited to be there and had a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. And they took me under their wing and really developed me in that sales capacity. And that catapulted into everything else.
So your goal was to play college football. Was it to ever like go professional? Was like that the long-term dream?
Well, listen, when you're young and you don't really understand how it all works, the best 1%, right? High school athletes play college, and then the best 1% of those, I think it's the number, go to the pro level. And so, when you're a kid, you think you're the best thing in the universe, and you don't really have a good temperature on the whole scheme of it, right? I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. They were gonna, my grades didn't matter because they needed me, and I was pretty good, and I had a lot of talent, and but talent didn't outweigh the things that were necessary, that were the academic side, of course. So
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting is like I think a lot of entrepreneurs can resonate with not doing great in school. Like some can, like Cindy. I mean, she
yeah.
was a triple plus in
Oh,
every
I can
class,
imagine, man. She's sharp,
But
man.
like, But like me, it was definitely graduated, but it was really because my mom's like, okay, you're failing, let's homeschool you and I'll do all your exams for you. Like,
Right, right. That's great, man. That's awesome.
but I think what's cool is like just seeing that like there's like when you're I think a lot of successful people they're able to like when something doesn't work, it's there's not like a woe is me. It's like, okay, like let's figure out the next thing. And it sounded
That's right.
like you dove into sales, which is interesting because when I was 20 years old, I was actually really shy, but I was like, I hated it. So at 20 years old, I got into sales. I'm like, I just want to be super good at sales. And I would love to hear a little bit about like how you transitioned from doing sales to kind of where you're at right now with
Right.
and you I know your business, you got some incredible stuff I'm excited to share,
Yes.
but how did you get
Yeah.
into what you're doing right now?
Well, it's real simple. So I started on automotive sales, really fine-tuned my skill set there. I wanted to be a dealer young and early. I really felt like that was the pathway for me. I wanted to own dealerships. I wanted to own a lot of them. I love the car business. I love interacting with people. I'm a people person.
Mm.
That's one thing we transition to business. We'll get that out later. People helping people, right? It's a passion of mine. But I was excited about that opportunity to get out there and do that. We did that. I had a lot of success doing that. But what happened was while I was there, I started seeing chinks in the armor. I started seeing things that need improvement from a marketing perspective. I happen to work for one of the most successful car dealers in America. One of my mentors I learned a lot from was Mr. Rick Case out of South Florida. And
Oh
Rick
wow.
and Rita, tremendous people. I mean, I can't tell you enough about the opportunity they gave me and the times they had to professionally pat me on the rear end and get me back in check, get me back on the straight and narrow, right? And they didn't throw me out. And they didn't say, you know what, you're not mature enough. They helped me develop. The Kevin Cole, which is my mentor that I worked with for so long, taught me this industry at a high level. And when I was doing that, one of the things that I loved about Rick's story, and I don't want to get too far off track, but Rick's story, Rick was the PR marketing guy for Evil Knievel, right?
Was he
So
really?
yeah, man, you got to
Because
read his book,
anybody
dude.
anybody listening, if you don't know who Rick Case is, like he's a
Yeah,
big deal with car
yeah.
dealerships here in
Yeah,
Florida.
from that family, working for a great organization to just, great culture, treated everybody respectfully. Rick and Rita would come in the dealership and they would start in the back of the dealership when they would come visit, Atlanta, because I was in Atlanta, the Atlanta division. They had Cleveland, Ohio, Atlanta, and they had South Florida. And they lived in South Florida. So Kevin Cole ran Atlanta. But when Rick and Rita would come to town, they would start in the back of the business. They would start
Mm.
back there where the detail, the porters, the people in the back that were working hard, 7 in the morning, before the salesmen, the managers, and all that came in. They would start there and they would go through and they would shake everybody's hand. They would thank everybody for their services and how hard they're working for them.
That's
They
culture,
knew
man.
people by name, man. Every one of them, dude. It was like,
Unbelievable.
how does Rick and Rita remember everybody's, because I can't remember everybody's name, right? I had to really work at that because I was like, I want to do that too. I want to be just like that. And
Wow.
so, just they were so impactful. They didn't even know this. I hope they have an opportunity to, or I hope Miss Rita Case has an opportunity to watch this because they're instrumental in my success. Kevin Cole, my mentor that ran Atlanta, he was instrumental in my successes, and so just really taught me a lot. Listen, they taught me a few things. I'll tell you a couple quick. No part's bigger than the whole, right? No part of the vessel, no part of the team is bigger than the whole. Everybody has a role, and
Yes.
every part matters. And then the fish rots from the head, right?
Mm.
So if
Leadership.
you're the
Yeah.
head, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So pretty impactful stuff that obviously had a significant impact in my life. And
So
so
see the way you interact with your team, like people are listening to this, like I see Ivy, like even before this, as you were talking to your staff and people are setting up your tech, you're like, hey, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Like you're just, you really do care about, so this is starting to make sense. You saw this from
yeah,
very successful entrepreneurs. You
very
saw this
successful.
early on, them shaking hands with the detail. I used to own a detailing shop though. So I
Right.
always
Good.
appreciate
That's
that
awesome. Yeah,
story.
that's
Right.
awesome.
And all the way through. And so that makes a lot of sense. And Cindy and I are huge on culture, like really valuing everybody in your team. And so
Right.
that's kind of that's where you got that from, is from your
Right.
mentor.
Yeah. I just saw them and it's like, I just respected them so much for knowing everybody's name. I mean, we had
Mm.
hundreds of employees in Atlanta, hundreds of employees, and they didn't miss a beat. It was unbelievable. It was like,
Unbelievable.
wow. So essentially what happened I was working for the Case organization, Mr. and Miss Case, and Kevin Cole, my direct supervisor. And I had worked through the ranks, I'd gone from, a salesperson to a finance manager to a sales manager to a general sales manager. And then I became a general manager, and I was running my own dealership, and we were ultra successful in our specific brand, one of the top in the nation. And so
Wow.
we really rocked. And the whole time I was doing that. And the reason I wanted to mention Rick's story about Evil Knievel, he was a crazy promotion guy, like wild.
Mm.
Like we had this campaign that we would do every August, and I remember it specifically, Race for the Record, right? And we wanted to break all the sales records for the organization in August. He would spend money. He didn't care about profits. He was all about being number one and taking over and having market share and doing that. And so it was unbelievable. I mean, like, I can't remember. We spent millions of dollars in 1 month advertising as our little group of stores. We had like 3 stores there. And I remember like working with Rick and being on the calls and hearing like the thought and the direction and the why we were doing it. And gosh, he was so good, man. And so that's when I really became passionate about marketing and advertising. And I realized not only is it culture, but if you got the right culture, but you don't have the right opportunities,
Yep.
then you got to have both, right? And so
Yes.
so the culture, something I learned from them is at a young age in management, and they beat it in your head down there, man. It was really really impactful. And then you take the piece of what he was able to do with Evil Knievel as an example. All he did was parlay that into automotive,
Yeah, I
right?
love that.
And I don't want to get in the weeds about their situation and how they did it, and him and his wife, how they came together, and the organization they built.
But
But
for you, that
that's
was
what
an
I'm excited
impact
about.
to
Oh,
see
yeah,
to see
yeah,
somebody that incredibly successful putting so much focus in one area,
right,
and that was probably that got you intrigued with the marketing. I know for me it was the
right,
opposite. I was really good at marketing and sales. I built a
right.
company really fast, but I was bad at team and culture. And so business crashed
That,
super
that,
quick,
that,
and then
yeah.
Cindy and I built this thing back up.
I
But
was about to say that's until you met Cindy, and then she fixed all
yeah,
that,
dude,
right?
it
Yeah,
was it was a mess. And Cindy's like the order to chaos.
right,
But for you, you got interested. You're seeing this going on. The gears are turning in your
right,
head.
right.
What was?
This is
How
bigger
did
than
you start
selling cars
pursuing
to
that?
me. It was bigger than selling cars to me. It's like there's more here for me, and I really
Mm,
believe I can help people. The culture of helping people. It's I grew up in a family that just loves people. On Sundays, my grandmother and my great grandmother, we would have people come over for, you call it brunch if you will, every Sunday after church, and we would get together, and there would be countless people that you wouldn't even know them. It would just be people showing up, and it was just awesome. And we just served one another and had fun together. And so that's how I was raised. And so when I met the cases and I went through that piece, it was like automatically a perfect fit, right? It was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then the marketing side that Rick brought to the table with the Evil Knievel story and all that, it was like, man, this guy's really good. And by the way, he's really good. He was really good, clearly,
mm.
at what he did. And so, I mean, it's a national brand now, and Time Dealer of the Year. She just won that last year, or this
Wow.
last NEDA. So, what happened for me was like I wanted to be more in the marketing side. So I got really passionate about coming up with different, we call them hooks in marketing, right? I was
Yeah.
passionate about coming up with hooks and
Oh,
different things to lead with to really do it. And we got really good at it. And I spent a lot of time with Kevin and Rick on that, and it became very impactful. And so we saw some really good numbers in that. And then, I like people. So getting up and talking to people.
yeah.
But what happened was for me is I felt like, I either had to make a decision to go one way or the other. I had to decide to either I want to be a dealer and I want to be in the corporate side of it and do it that way, or I needed to look at doing it the other way, which is helping dealers. So I felt like, I'm one person, I can be at one place, but if I'm helping people, I can be all over the country. And so
Yeah.
that was really what prepared me and made me say, hey, you know what, Mr. Case, Miss Case, I want to go out on my own and venture my own, and that's what I did.
Wow, that's really powerful because I think that I actually heard I heard this study that was done, and it showed like a lot of people that are like Bill Gates and these people that create these really big impact, they have a motivation that's like it's not just about like helping that one person in front of you. They're like, how can I expand my impact really, really large? And so I think that's really interesting because you see a lot of very, very successful people. They have those forks in the road. It's like, well, hey, if I put my time and energy here, the maximum impact can be bigger. And I think that's ultimately like people that love entrepreneurship. It's like they get excited about how can I expand my reach. So
Yeah.
what did that look like? I mean, so when did you start? Was it just did it start off with you were doing print? Were you going and getting the jobs and deals yourself? When did you start getting into like doing partnerships? What does that journey look like?
When I started up, it was just me. And I called a friend that I'd worked with in the past, and he came and helped me. His name's Roger. He actually is with me today. So he runs operations for this business now, and we just a blessing in our lives. And his wife Tara, phenomenal friends, and we've been together a long time. And we've had some breakups. We know not bad breakups, but he had
Yeah.
an opportunity to try something different for a minute.
Yeah.
He became a car dealer for a while, and then decided, he divested and got away from that space. He sold his portion of the business back or to someone else. And then, we were able to put things back together here for us. I'm a little selfish because I appreciate him so much, but
Yeah.
he helped me get this when my original company off the ground many years ago. He helped me get it off the ground. And what we did was we went in and I was doing training and consulting for dealerships on how to do the things that I learned from the cases to do, right? From
Yeah.
Kevin Cole. The things that
Wow.
I learned that were so impactful in such a great organization, the dealerships across the country were just missing the boat. There's so many
Wow.
of them that were just off track. And you talked about culture. Goodness gracious. I mean, some of the things you walk into, you're like, the store opens at 9:30, 9 in the morning, right? The manager's showing up at 9:45, 10 o'clock. You got an hour in the morning before when the day starts that you don't even have someone there if a client or a customer in service or someone has a question about a car or a service that you provide. And so it was just like, wow to me. You know what I mean? I had owned a company, did some marketing. I'd gone back into retail, was working at a high level with an organization out of Florida. And I came home, decided that I was going to take a break for a little while. We were good financially, clearly, and just want to take a little break. Well, my wife was kind of a funny story. My wife looked at me. She went online. Together, we opened a company, and she says, "Go get them, Tiger." She's tired of looking at me, I guess, on a daily basis. So, it's like time to go back to work. And so this was in 2017. And so in 2017, my wife launched Johnson Advertising. Johnson Inkworks is the company that's the parent company. And so that's the company my wife owns, that I represent, I work for. And so that company started then. And then today, obviously the print facility is Johnson Inkworks. Which is obviously my wife's business. I'm the marketing side and the sales side. My company is Results
Yeah.
Solution Works. So that's the two company variations. But my wife does all my printing. It's unfortunate. It's like a monopoly, right? If she finds out I send an order to another printer or another designer, which there aren't many that do what we do, clearly, it's gonna be trouble for me at the
Yeah.
house. She's got a captive audience.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So tell me about Result Solution Works. I
Yeah.
mean, how did you, cause like when you walked me through your factory and your operations, I was blown away, man. I was taking pictures and I'm blown away at that. How did you get into that? Cause you're one of the only companies with this technology. How did
Yeah.
you get into that? And tell me about this technology.
Well, it's always a need-based thing for me. I'm a trend person. I like to pay attention. I get up in the mornings, I read. I've got a regimen that I do every day and try to understand what's happening around the world, especially locally, and in this country, in the United States of America. And I try to get my head around it and try to follow it and try to project, things in the future that may be impactful for small business owners. I want to help. Like I told you earlier, my idea is I can make money and be successful if everybody else is successful that I'm helping. If they're
Yeah.
successful, I'm going to win, right? It's real easy. It's not a complicated formula. People out there, listen to me. If you overcomplicate it, if you can help other people be successful, you will win too. I'm just telling you, it's that simple. And so that's what we obviously pride ourselves on. So what happened was during COVID, okay, we were doing some direct mail, we were doing some marketing, we were doing a lot of social media advertising, website development, a lot of consulting work, going out to stores and dealerships and telling them, hey, this is, you're doing it all wrong. Let me show you how you do it. Let's worry about your customer satisfaction. How do we really boost that? How do we have a great experience, and all those things. And so that's what we focused on the consulting side. And so what happened was I was doing all that when COVID hit, we basically stopped dead cold in the water, like so many businesses
Oh,
out there,
wow.
because you couldn't advertise. What was advertising when we all were locked in our homes and told we had to stay 6 feet from each other?
Yeah.
If you owned a business, you couldn't even have people come into the business. You had to schedule appointments. It had to be
Yeah.
a needs-based product, like, what do they call it? Essential.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
department. You couldn't
It
sell
was
cars.
crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, we've all lived through it, right? I mean, it's nuts, but what happened was, we were in a bad spot because we had a lot of expense, a lot of things going on, and I wasn't going to take a failure on the chin. So we basically, what happened was I was sitting in my house and I was mapping out things, and I'm a big whiteboard guy, so I had whiteboards everywhere. I'm mapping out what's this, what's that, different things to consider. And then I got this mailer in the mail piece, or this mailer in the mail, and it was terrible, to be fair. It was a
Yeah. Yeah.
yellow letter, had lines on it, so it looked like a legal pad,
Yep.
and it was fake printed. You could tell it wasn't even handwritten, but it tried to make it look handwritten. It was just atrocious, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were trying to buy my house, right? Well, this is like we're locked in the house in like May of COVID, right? 20. And I get this letter and I'm like, people are marketing right now, trying to do business. Like, it shocked me. It's like we're over here, we can't even go outside. It's like, wow.
Mm.
So it hit me. It was like, you know what? This is pretty cool. So knowing the trend of the automotive industry, which happened, obviously we all know this, we all lived it. This country, you pretty much have to have a car unless you live in a major city, right? So there was no new cars coming from anywhere in the globe. What happened to the used cars? The values went crazy, right?
Yes.
Because it was
Yeah.
supply and demand. Car, like I had a Jeep Gladiator Rubicon lifted. I had all the brand new. It was only had 10,000 miles on it. And I forgot what I paid for it, but whatever. Listen, they offered me $10,000 more than I paid for it used. It was like, what? I got a good deal, but wow. Like I was
Yeah.
taxes and everything. I was making $10,000 over taxes. I was like, wow. When I saw all that stuff, it's like, you know what? What would a buyback? And this is just obviously not trying to single it down, but what would a buyback letter look like in the same format, but be believable, be
Yeah.
legitimate, be
Be
personalized in a way
legitimate.
that's like, yeah, be legitimate like they'll. So I started studying. I found some equipment. I tried some other equipment. I started playing with this thing, and it's progressed into what it is today.
So, and then what you're doing today, guys, anybody listening to this, it's like literally handwritten letters. This is not printed on there. Your robots have a pen in their hands and they're handwriting these letters. I sent some pictures to Cindy and she was like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
so legitimate. And I think what's so powerful about this is I want everybody to imagine you go to your mailbox and you've got a shiny ad in there. You've got like some other junk mail, and then you've got one letter that's handwritten. What do you do with the
With a
mail?
real blue
Everybody
ink pen, a real one.
with a real ink
Yeah.
pen, and it looks like just a personal letter sent to you. You go in the house, you throw out all the promotion stuff, or it goes in your recycling bin, and you open up the personal letter. Yeah, you mentioned hooks before. I love hooks. I love copy. But if I'm writing like an email, I want it to look like an email from a friend. I'll usually do lowercase. It'll be very casual. A lot of our marketing works so well because it seems personal. And I think when I saw this, I'm like, that is, you are automating something that is humanized. Because I think in our
Right.
market right now, especially with AI and all these different pieces, people are on guard more than ever before. And they have such good BS detectors on, is this
Right.
automated? Is this real? Am I talking to a real person? Is this a real letter or is this fake? And I
Right.
think when you're able to, in a time when people are wondering if they're talking to a robot or wondering if they're going to, it's like if you can humanize the process where they go, oh my gosh, like I have a real person I'm talking to, you can cut through the noise. And so
Right.
you kind of saw that. How the heck did you even create something that was real and believable and humanized?
Again, trends, data. You talked about the beginning of the show. I study data. Some things I want to touch back on what you said a moment ago. You said the mail goes in the trash, doesn't make it in the house. People get confused production value because of the art and the colors and the graphics is so fun and great. Look, you're not selling to yourself. You're selling to somebody on the other side. And we get caught up in all this production and it's like, wait, just keep it simple, stupid, right? That's the old saying, how this direct mail works, in my opinion. Listen, I've got the printing presses and things. I can do anything anybody else can do. We can do crazy postcards and all this high production value, but nothing responds better than personalization and that blue ink. I'm just telling you right now, nothing out there in
Yeah.
print. Okay, clearly. So when you look at that, going back to what you said a moment ago, the 80%. These are real numbers. 80% of all mail, direct mail that's printed, postcards, 11 by 17 folded in half flyers, 4 by 6 postcards, 8.5 by 11 postcards, anything marketing related, 80% of it, right at 80% goes in the trash can, never makes it in the house. So we've also found that the woman of the house typically is the one getting the mail. So if you're sending out a marketing piece, just for example, with a Bass Pro Shops boat on it, it's probably going in the trash. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate to make light of it
He's like,
and laugh.
we're not getting the boat.
You're not getting in the
I don't
house,
want him
bro.
seeing this.
They're not talking to you. Okay. And
Yeah.
then what we found in our studies, and I got a lot of data supporting points for their data points for this, is over 98% of people, when they get something that's personalized with a real ink pen, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
First of all, they look at it, they feel their nail, they see if there's an indentation of the pen, it's legit, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, it makes it in the house. So many of our clients, which is great, it's called shelf life, right? So many of our clients are like, man, I sent this batch of letters out. We sent out 20,000 letters, and we did a great job right away. But I've got people coming in still, not every day, but once a month, twice a month. I think people walking in from 2 years ago with their letter in their hand going, hey, I'm here to see Fred at the dealership because, I want to talk about my vehicle. And if they're like blown away, they can't imagine it because, again,
Yes.
print
Because they
advertising
keep
and all
that.
that. Yeah, they keep it. They put on the, listen, it was a sweet, listen, quick story. These are actual conversations had with GMs of dealerships.
Yeah.
One of them was up in Bristol, Tennessee, right? And first time they did a batch of letters with us, we helped it. They've done a lot of letters, but one time the first batch, they had a professor from the university there come into the dealership, ask for the person's name that was on the letter, and thank them for their grammar and that they actually sent them out a letter. Isn't that crazy? Like that
Yeah.
was wild. Like the guy calls me like this, blown away. Like I can't believe this. Like I've been advertising, I've been running dealerships all this time, never seen anything like that. It's crazy. That was one example. We've had examples where people will then write a letter back to us and say, hey, look, we sold that vehicle, but I wanted to take the time to write you back because you wrote me and let you know that we sold the vehicle. And thank you for your letter. We really appreciate it. And they'll actually write us back or, write the dealership back, it's wild, you know what I mean? But it's just really common sense when you sit and think about it. It's the personalization side and it works, man. It works.
Yes.
And it just conveys an emotion
There's nothing
that's
more
real.
powerful than automation and humanization. If you can combine
Right.
those things, people usually will do one or the other well, but it's so rare that I see anybody do both well. And what I love about this is that I am obsessed about doing those things. And we do outreach, we do outbound, we do LinkedIn,
Right.
email, super high scale.
Right.
If we can automate it so it's incredibly scalable. I mean, we're doing 5 million reach outs a month, but on the
Yeah.
other side, make sure that every single person we're engaging with, it feels humanized and it brings them through a product. When you can combine those two pieces, oh boy, it is so impactful. And in my
Right.
mind, just the marketing mind of the data plus the scalability plus the humanization of what you're doing is really powerful.
I don't think that's necessarily the best course of action. But if somebody's spending money, I mean, this is the best product for that, in my opinion.
Yeah. What I'm curious about, because I don't know if anybody heard that you don't do any of the sales. Like, so tell me about how do you, because I know most of your business comes
Relationships.
in through partners that
Right.
send business from their clients. These are like maybe other
Yeah.
marketing agencies, other
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
How did you get those relationships, and how do you maintain them?
Well, it's all about trust, right? And trust isn't built in a conversation. It takes time. When you're put through the trials of fire, what you do and how you handle that is your character,
Yeah.
and it defines you. And I'm not going to sit and tell anybody every day that we don't have challenges. We've not had challenges. We have machines that break, right? We have people that don't show up at times that have to run machines. It's the same thing in any business, right? So with all that being said, it's how you respond to it. And so that's what I pride myself. We're involved in something that that doesn't go off the way we anticipate or I anticipate. I either give the money back or I'll redo it for them, or we'll figure it out. We just take care of people because
Yeah.
your reputation is all you have. That's it.
Yeah, especially when if you're selling like little small programs and products, you can kind of do some kind of turn and burn model. When you're working with the bigger
Right.
companies that are sending you,
They see right
hey,
through it, Tim.
yeah, they see right. So how did you, like, kind of curious, how did you get in the doors for the companies, for these marketing? Because you told me some of their names. You got some big companies that'll send you like a lot of work. How did you first get your foot in the door with those and get them to start outsourcing some of
Well,
this
it
stuff?
started in automotive because that was my space. And when you're working for organizations like the cases, you bring a little bit of credibility. Not everybody can go there and do a good job. And my
Yeah.
reputation was doing a phenomenal job in leadership, and the numbers were always outstanding, and always the top of the mark. And we accolades and awards for days. And so when you get a reputation, because then these dealers are looking for that guy, they want to have a partner, they want to have somebody come run their store. They poach you. They look for those big organizations that have it all together, and they try to grab the top leaders in those groups because you bring all that knowledge that they don't have yet, you bring it with you, right? And so they're not only buying you, they're trying to, they're trying to rip off the company you learned from too. So because of that, my reputation was pretty big. And
Yeah.
and when I got in the marketing side, things just started happening and going big too. And so it was really a word of mouth thing. We got a client here that did real well, and the next thing you know, he's going to his 20 group, which a 20 group real quickly is a group of dealers that get together, like size dealers in different markets, and they share ideas. They talk about their financial statements. They just really work together to try to be better, right? It's what it's
Yeah.
the intention is to improve on, and how what's best practices, how can we do better by the customer. It's a really good method, vehicle, if you will, for dealerships, called 20 groups. And there's multiple companies that host them. And so, they bring them their 20 groups because they get credit for the next big idea. And so all of a sudden they're introducing me as the big idea in these 20 groups, and we're
Yeah,
getting
and that's what you're
opportunities.
talking about. Just doing
Yeah.
a great job, crushing it, building that
Yeah.
reputation. I mean, it's the same with us. I mean, we go and we work for somebody, we crush it, and then that person that is spending big money knows other people that are spending big money.
That's
You
right.
get in with one or two, and
That's
the next thing
exactly
you know,
it,
they
man.
open up to your
But
friends.
but if but
Yeah.
if you didn't, if you and Cindy didn't do the right thing and honor them and do what you said and exceed expectations, you would never have that second opportunity with them,
Yep.
nor would you get brought into the 20 group or to their friends in their sphere of influence. You never get that shot. So that's what it's all about. It's about people. And so we can help people and we can do well. It just blossoms that way. Sometimes it doesn't go as fast as you want it to go,
Yeah.
right? And that's when you and I started talking at times, right? We talked about
Yeah.
it. But it's the right way to do it. It's scalable, it's organic, and it's real, and it stays there. Just taking care of your people.
So, I mean, we're really big on, so for, I mean, we're outreach, like just we can scale super fast. What I love is when you mix those, when you can go out, you can go bring in clients at will. But then when you have like that kind of delivery and that kind of
Mhm.
upsell, one of the most important things is lifetime value. And people don't talk about this a lot. People, I think, making that first sell, selling that first program, people are so obsessed with just that. And I love that because that's what we do for people is we help them get that first sell. But what's more powerful is not how much money did I make on the first sell, how much is a client worth to me over a lifetime?
Right, right,
And when you look at the biggest and the best companies, they can literally lose money on their first interaction with a client because they know, hey, I might spend $10,000 to get this client and only make 10,000 on them, so I'm breaking even. But I know because this one person will generally turn into two referrals, which will double my income. Those are
right,
and they'll end up turning into an average of a $100,000 client across the board. And I think
right.
a lot of big businesses, like Coca-Cola, their goal is to get, at one impression per every person in the world. Like that's crazy. Right. And so, but it's because they know it's not a matter of like trying to get that one client. It's like, how much is a client worth over a lifetime? And I think that's what you have down really well is seeing the long term, not just like, hey,
Yeah.
let me just do a good job, but how can I do such a good job that they're going to want to do more business with me, that they're going to want to refer me to their friends.
Well, and,
And
and Tim, think about it in this perspective. You step out of the marketing side for a minute. Put your small business owner hat on, right? Someone's coming to you and offering you a product or service, right? And you buy that product or service based on you gaining trust or believing in what they were saying, and feeling like they're pretty trustworthy. You don't buy from somebody that's a liar. So you feel good about the person. Then you buy it, and then you find out after you bought it that what they said is not true, wasn't real, wasn't accurate. It didn't do the things that they had mentioned or the things they sold it to you for. How happy are you going to be? You're not. It's
yeah,
that's the end of that deal because you were lied to, right? And so what happens on my side is, listen, I'm not lying to nobody, number one. Okay, I don't ever promise anything, number two. And the third most important thing is I stand behind everything I do. So if something doesn't go off the way that I envision it, and I've got pretty lofty expectations. I mean, this is my baby. You may have an expectation, but I promise you, whatever it is, I'm higher than that. Okay. And when I don't feel like we met expectation, I'll redo it at no additional charge. I'll refund money. And what's happened over the years is I've had to do that at times when maybe we were late on something, right? We had a project that had a specific date range, and the machines gave us a tough time. And so,
yeah,
when we were growing, or people didn't show up for work and we missed the deadline, I'll call them up and I'll give them extra mail, or I'll put out, no charge on me on the house, extra mail. You want extra? I'm going to do extra because I didn't achieve or exceed the expectation that I have for the project.
Yeah.
And when you treat people that way, and it's not about money, it's not about a sale. Listen, we make money again because if they win, I'm going to win. And so when we apply that principle, and then you stand behind what you say and do, it's really the right formula. And again, I sleep good at night. I lay my head on my pillow at night knowing that I've done everything today to help my clients or help my friends, if you will. And that's a great place to be, I can assure you.
Yeah, I love it. Again, this is the Takeover. And remember, winning is not a destination, it is a way of life. Stay winning.